What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Bat Talk. I'm Ryan Murphy, and I'm really thrilled to be here with Mr. Kevin Altieri. Mr. Kevin Altieri is a longtime animation director, and for Batman fans in particular, you might recognize his name as one of the most, if not the most frequent, director of Batman the Animated Series, which every Batman fan loves. So, Mr. Altieri, thanks so much for being here today.
My pleasure. Glad
Yeah.
to be here.
So yeah, let's talk about, well, first of all, like obviously you got into animation. Can you talk to us about sort of where you're from and what kind of eras you grew up in terms of the animation world and what got you into that world?
Well, I'm from the East Coast originally. Like I'm from families from Maine and from Maine. I grew up in Connecticut, and moved out to California in 1979, mainly because I really wanted to get into animation and get into films. So I actually started out. I went to the Kubert School,
Okay.
the Joe Kubert School, cartoon graphic art.
Hmm.
I went there for a couple of years. I went to 1 year at the Art Institute of Boston, but none of the education actually prepared me to get into animation at all. It didn't. So, but I worked in doing special effects. I did comics for Cartoons Magazine and stuff
Hmm.
back in like 1979, 80, and got into film, working on stuff like Killer Clowns from Outer Space and the Megaforce and and I worked with Dave Allen doing stop motion work. I storyboarded a lot of stuff, like I did Robot Jocks with him, and just all those cheap 1980s science fiction movies. And I got in. I was doing storyboards for them, and when Inspector Gadget came out, I was like a big fan of Inspector Gadget, and of course, growing up, I was a big fan of Tezuka, the Astro Boy and Gigantor and stuff. And I noticed that Deke, Inspector Gadget, was working with Japanese studios. The animation was great. And then, when I found out that Deke opened up an office in Studio City, which wasn't too far from where I was, I literally took my live action storyboards and walked in and just said, "Hey, you guys hiring?" And they said, "Yeah, are those storyboards?" And that's kind of like where it started. They hired me on the spot, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Well, guess I got to learn how to do animation now." And but I was already a big fan of animation, so it wasn't that tough. And very soon, directors from Japan came over, and I was already, I was already doing like Japanese style animation boards, but I didn't really know that's what I was doing because the only animation storyboards that I was using was these little storybooks, and I didn't know who he was, but it was Miyazaki,
Hmm.
and they were like they sold like these little storybooks in California and like Little Tokyo and stuff, which I would go and buy, and I didn't even know what Castle Cagliostro was, but they were the storyboards for Castle Cagliostro. And those were the ones, so that actually gave me a jump start. Like that was like, so Miyazaki was kind of like my jump start to
Wow.
doing storyboards for animation.
Wow.
And at Deke, and that's where I met Dan Reba and Brad Rader and all the guys, Mike Gogan and Bruce Tim, and all those guys worked at Deke at one point or another, and we all ended up like on Batman together.
Yeah.
You know,
So is that
does that make sense?
yeah, yeah. Is that what brought you over to so I think when Bruce was doing Batman, he just from your personal affiliation, that was what brought you over there?
Yeah. Well, you know who I was, and what was I was working on? I think the last animated I was working at Disney development. So I was working on Lion King, and I was working on Treasure Planet, movies like that. And they had a
Hmm.
couple other other things I was doing development for. Mostly I was doing Treasure Planet.
Oh wow.
Um, and so Bruce, I got in contact with me because there weren't at that time there were very few people who had any experience doing action adventure. in animation. When like what was this 1990, and the only action adventure stuff was like Marshall Brave Star and He-Man and stuff like that over at Filmation.
Hmm.
But I was doing action adventure like shows like Cops and stuff. I was a director on Cops over at Deke, so Bruce knew that I was doing some action adventure, and that Starcom was another action adventure show,
Hmm.
science fiction show. So he interviewed me, and I was like, this is going to be my whole attitude. I had a whole flip attitude about it because it's like, oh, these are the guys doing Tiny Toons, right?
Okay.
It's like, here we go, here comes another Super Friends. But then Bruce showed me that trailer that he and Eric Radonsky did, and that was like, I was like, oh my god, you're doing Fleischer's Superman. And then Bruce is like, yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do. And it's like, sign me up. I was on board right then. And I think the first person I called was Dan Reba. I mean, I think he was working at TMS at the time, but I called up Dan. And I went and said, Dan, it's like, they're doing you got to come over. You got to get on my crew. They're doing a really great, we're going to do a Fleischer Superman version of Batman.
Yeah.
And Dan goes, I know. He already knew. He had a copy of the trailer and everything,
Oh wow.
So I, I think he was actually waiting for me to call him up.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, that's kind of how we got started.
Yeah, and then you of course like you directed the very first episode, I believe, on Leather Wings, which is the the
Yeah,
sort of the great
pilot.
yeah, the
Yeah, the
pilot. Yeah.
pilot.
So and that was what I mean. Everyone talks about how revolutionary that was, and what can you tell me about just about that first episode about getting that job and working? Now I've always wondered because they always say Andrea Romano did the voice direction. So as the
Yes.
episodic director, like, were you still in the room for the voice recordings and stuff? And
Oh yeah.
okay.
Oh yeah. No, that was actually people. It was even at this time, I'm still just a fanboy.
Hmm.
It's like I haven't lost any of the enthusiasm. I still get jazzed when I look at like the Neil Adams comics from the '70s. You know, I haven't lost it. Um, but one of the greatest things about the job was the recordings because people don't really understand how cool it was to watch the actors like performing. Because they Andrea would do it like radio play style. All the actors are in the room together,
Hmm.
you know, and all of the actors act towards each other, you know, and it's. I mean, people don't really understand how great that was. Like,
Hmm.
especially watching Kevin Conroy.
Yeah.
He should have been the live action Batman. I'm serious. Like, especially when I first met him, I just walked in and it's like, hey Kevin, this is Kevin. It's like, yeah, I'm the voice of Batman, and I'm like, Jesus, it's like this guy, it's like I'm 6 foot. He
Mhm.
tops me. He's taller than me.
Yeah.
Broad shoulders, big jaw. It's like, why isn't this guy playing Batman? He would have looked great in the costume too.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, but yeah, that was like kind of the best part of the job was when you get the script, you read the script, you get the show you're going to do, and then you go to the recording. And usually I would go with Paul or Bruce or whoever, you know. Usually me and Bruce would go together, and you sit down and you get to watch the actors perform the
Mhm.
show that you're going to do, and a lot of ideas that you have already. Um, the actors bring even more to it. So like you actually end up visualizing what the actors have been doing
Mhm.
in the booth.
Yeah.
It's
Does that take like a day to do a one episode of voice recording?
Yeah, it half a day.
Half a
I
day.
mean, Andrea was like really worked really well. They would actually do usually, I believe, they would do 2 episodes when they would do a recording.
Very cool.
Say it would be on a Thursday, and they in the morning they would do one show. Usually, she could get it done in about 3 hours.
Cool.
you know. So they
Yeah.
would do probably two shows in a day, two different episodes, or they
Right.
would do pickups, and then they always planned at Warner Brothers. They always planned on would do an ADR session.
Hmm.
So after footage came back, they would bring actors in to do pickups,
Hmm.
whatever line changes or just stuff like in Showdown they brought in they brought in the actors just to do the sword fight.
Mm. Oh, wow.
Malcolm McDowell, and it's like to do the sword fight, all the grunts and stuff.
Very cool.
So that actually is a lot of fun to watch when I would get to sit in and see like them doing like the ADR session for something that you already had done.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
and it's like so they're playing the footage and the actors are actually acting to what you just got animated. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so I wanted to talk about, actors. I don't know if you as the director were ever involved in casting for various roles. Um,
Sometimes.
sometimes. So the one that I'm most curious about is I have a deep love for this actor. One of my favorite actors of all time is David Warner.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, and you directed, I believe, the episode that introduced him, which was Off Balance, and then
Yes.
then the big two-parter that followed, which was the
Yeah. Actually, I did all of all of the Rachel Gould episodes.
yeah, okay,
And yeah, and David Warner was fantastic. But see Andrea when that happened, and it's like, and I had because the very first interview I had with Bruce and with was I said when Rachel Gould shows up because I was such a huge fan.
yeah.
I said when Rachel Gould shows up, I'm doing it. Just promise me that. And they ended up giving me all the episodes. And me and Bruce and Paul came up with the concept of, Rachel Gould and Showdown
Hmm.
doing the flashback just so we could do Jonah Hex, you know. But actually, that was well, just as an example of what she would do. Andrea would go and call up, and she'd get on the phone with me or Bruce, and she'd say, "Okay, so who would you cast? Who do you see? What would be whether they're living or dead? Who would the actor be that you would have?" And so for Rachel Gould, we're like, "Oh, I don't know, Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart would be great." It's like, "Oh yeah, maybe Patrick Stewart or and then he actually almost got cast, but I said Michael York because I was listening to Michael York doing these books on tapes,
Yeah.
and of course Michael York has a fantastic voice. He ended up being cast as Count Vertigo.
Hmm.
Um, but I said, "Oh, how about Michael York?" And he said, "I could get Michael York." And then, like about a day later, I think she called up and she said, "How about David Warner?" And I'm like, "Can we get David Warner? Does he live here?" And it's like, "Yeah, he does." It's like, and I don't know why she came up with it, but it's like, my God,
Hmm.
perfect, perfect casting,
Yeah.
you know. And I never, and that's like one thing. It's like once she said it, it's like, yeah, perfect.
Hmm.
Why didn't I think of that? But I have to give Andrea credit again for that.
Yeah.
But we did catch Malcolm McDowell was me and Bruce insisting on Malcolm McDowell because he played Flashman in Royal Flash,
Hmm.
and Arcady Duvall as Rachel Gould's son.
Hmm.
You know, that was our casting. And Malcolm McDowell, and now he's been doing voice acting ever since. I think
Yeah.
that
He
was
also later played Metallo in the
yeah,
DC. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah.
So
And
yeah.
I think he's been doing a lot of different voice acting too. But yeah, so I can take credit for getting Malcolm McDowell into animation.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was just such an extraordinary series, and we're still talking about 30 years later. Um, and they're still making new fans, and I think a part of that is the incredible voice cast. I mean, they did land some real pulls in that show. Everything from, like David Warner, Tim Curry was the initial Joker actually, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
imagine replacing Tim Curry. That's crazy. Um,
yeah. No, it's like that was like I got to meet Tim Curry,
yeah.
even though he wasn't on the show for very long. I was like really I came in, I had an REM t-shirt on
Hmm.
because I had just seen REM like a week before. I went to a concert with my friend Dwayne. And so I show up at the recording and I'm getting ready to go and like, oh boy, I'm gonna meet Frankenfurter, you know. It's like and, and I was like had all these Joker things I was gonna say and to give him guidance in the show and what I wanted out of the Joker. And I walk in and Tim Curry's in the booth and I walk in and I have the REM shirt on and he leans over and goes, ah, somebody with good taste in music. And that was like, yep. From then on, I couldn't say a word. I was just
Yeah,
dumbstruck, and
of course. Yeah, I mean, with everything from Paul Williams as the Penguin to
yeah.
trying to think of some of these people they
Oh,
have.
Mark Hamill,
Yeah, Mark Hamill, of
yeah,
course. And, uh,
yeah.
so
And that's another thing too. Is like, oh, I wish nothing against Danny DeVito, but God, I wish Paul Williams did the live action. You know, because he's such a good Penguin.
he is. Yeah, it's great.
And Mark Hamill, of course, is like a prodigy. Again, I am exalted in fandom because I got to watch Harley Quinn, Arlene Sorkin and Mark Hamill performing together with Kevin Conroy. It's like, man, that's a memory that's burnt into my skull. People just don't understand how cool it was to watch those three act together. And their comedic timing is
Mhm.
so perfect. It's unbelievable. I mean, it comes across on the show
Yeah.
like Harlequinade especially. Just Arlene was just like I don't know her comedic timing was just great. And I don't even remember any guidance I gave them at the recordings because after they would like deliver their lines, Andrea would go, okay, give me notes, you know, and I would like give notes, usually. The only one I can record ever giving was having Arlene say, laugh this one off. Puddin'. I just had her hit that pudding hard, don't be sweet about it. I think that's all I can remember ever giving those guys any kind of direction,
Yeah.
you know.
But as far as like the animation goes and everything, what do you feel was your what episode in that entire run do you feel was your finest hour, your finest moment that you really creatively had?
Oh, that's not fair. Because um in many that's hard to say. I think if I was to say what I think the best episode is,
Mhm.
that's impossible. Two Face Part One.
Yeah.
Um, that came out so well. TMS, knocked it out of the park with the animation. Um, but then again, there's Harley's Holiday. I just love Harley's Holiday. It's not as serious as Two Face Part One, but Two Face Part One, and then if you ever get the chance to see on Leather Wings on the big screen,
Oh,
which
wow.
they did screen it for us, that holds up. And that again, that's Spectrum animation.
Hmm.
On Leather Wings is like I'm really proud of that.
Hmm.
And then there's Showdown, and it's like Showdown is like I love Showdown because it's like, I got to do the Wild Wild West. I got to do steampunk before steampunk existed,
Hmm.
you know. It was like that was like a dream come true, and that was like a story that we all came up with, you
Yeah.
know. And uh, yeah, it's impossible. I mean, there are some episodes that I just wish were animated better. But when you get to the good ones,
Yeah.
you know, like I'm just so pleased with like every time I see Harley's Holiday.
Hmm.
You just the whole screwball ending. It's like I'm just very gratified, like stuff that I drew,
Hmm.
and me and my crew, that we did. And then when you see it actually work, when the animators really get into it, and you get like the best animators,
Hmm.
great. And then there's Feet of Clay Part Two. You know that the end. I mean, again, TMS. I couldn't ask for better. And I love that clay face, and it's a again, TMS. The animation was just incredible on that one.
Yeah.
Uh, I, but I can't. See, there you go.
Yeah. Well, well,
Those are my favorites.
so one thing I find interesting is that you kind of must have left the show at some point because when they revamped it into
Yeah.
the new look, you did yeah, there's no episodes directed by you, and you also I can't help but notice never directed anything else in the DCAU, Superman or Justice League or anything. So was there a point where you just parted ways?
Well, I was I was just trying to get a simple raise, and no one would listen to me. And Disney was trying to hire me for Gargoyles. I was there for meetings before Gargoyles happened, and Disney was trying to hire me, you know, and I ended up making a deal with Wildstorm with Jim Lee, and I got an office a block from the beach where I surf, you know, and I did Gen 13 for the next couple of years.
Okay.
Uh, it was, I did a feature, with Shane Poindexter. So I had I was doing, God, that was the first direct-to-video superhero movie.
Yeah.
Disney ended up getting involved in distribution, so I don't know why Jim made that deal,
Yeah.
but Paramount got the deal to distribute it overseas, so it got released all over the world,
Hmm.
you know, but not in the United States.
Yeah.
People can actually see it on YouTube. Some guy actually wisely using an AI algorithm, he actually took I guess it's a one of the VHS sources and actually tuned it up. And so it looks actually pretty good on YouTube right
Oh,
now.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did Gen 13. And I ended up doing a lot of different things. I did Gen 13, and then I was directing Stripperella. Remember Stripperella?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was doing Stripperella. I did some storyboards for Dan Reba on Justice League.
Okay.
And I did some storyboards for Bruce. But I was when I went back to Warner Brothers, I was directing on the Scooby Doo direct to videos.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I was directing on Scooby Doo and the Shadow Goblins, and
Mhm.
and then people saying, "Oh, what a big come down to go from Batman to Scooby Doo," and it says, "Well, that might have bothered me if I didn't like doing Scooby Doo.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Scooby Doo.
Who doesn't?
It's like again, it's like so." And let me see, Stripperella, and I did the rock video for Pearl Jam, "Do the Evolution,"
Yeah.
which is kind of like that. And if anyone watches that, it's like I did that for Todd McFarlane. It's like Todd didn't direct it; I directed it. Obvious when you look at it, because it's like that. That's like looking inside of my head.
Mhm.
So I did that, and I did like I worked for Imagine Television. I did a Rap Bastard pilot, which you can actually see on online. If you go online, people can catch that too. It's like 4 minute pilot.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I was doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, of course. It's been,
Yeah,
30 years since Batman, so you've racked up a lot
yeah,
of credits. Obviously you start to see stuff like Transformers and G.I. Joe,
yeah,
Spider-Man even, which is must have been fantastic to get, you switched
yeah. No,
Kevin? You switched sides. You did Spider.
I just well, it's like again, one of the guys, Vic Cook,
Hmm.
who I hired on Alf and or Elf Tales, I think,
Hmm.
back in the 80s. He ended up becoming a producer, and he hired me for Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man. And that was again, that was a really good show.
Yeah.
And that Jennifer Coyle, who I met doing Scooby Doo's, she was yeah, I think she was the first female director on Scooby Doo's.
Hmm.
But I helped her out like on her first directing job. And again, it's like she hired me to do storyboards on Spectacular Spider-Man.
Hmm.
And then I ended up doing like, and immediately Vic, just hired me to do, to direct.
Yeah.
So, it's like Spectacular Spider-Man. God, I worked for Frank Parr too. I did like Hulk versus Wolverine. I didn't direct on that one. I just did storyboards with me and Butch Lukey.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I love doing the Hulk too, man. I got to do the big Hulk transformation. That was a hoot. And I
Yeah.
did a Doctor Strange. You know, it's like so. Yeah, no, I wasn't at the DCAU all the time, but and I did, and again, I would go back and like I really enjoyed doing the doing all of the Scooby Doo stuff. You know, those were like actually really enjoyable. I actually they liked my storyboard so much that I thought I was doing these blue pencil roughs, and I thought I would do a blue pencil and hand it in, and then I was going to ink it. And I handed in my blue pencils on the Scooby Doo's, and every time I would do that, they go, "Well, you're done." It's like what? And so then I would just jump onto another part of the, help out. Like I would help out Jennifer with her stuff.
Mhm.
And actually, it's like the last stuff I did for Warner Brothers was working for yeah, it was on the Harley Quinn show.
Okay. Yeah.
The last job I had was the holiday special, the Valentine's Day special, where Bane grows giant and
Yep.
everything. Yeah. I, I won't say that I was doing storyboards on that one, but I specifically got the job to because everyone was pixelating Bane's junk,
Yep.
and it's like that's not funny, that's not funny. So I had my routine. It's like my job, was to come up with routines to cover up his junk. So like you see, like the
Hmm.
Sausage Festival banner, you know, which he wears as a codpiece for a quick few seconds and
Yeah.
make sure that the dump truck is blocking him. And then he walks in front of a convenient sign, or a flock of pigeons
Yeah.
blocks his crotch, things like that.
I bet when you directed the Bane episode for Batman that you never thought you'd be doing Bane that way.
No. But it's like, yes, I'm a Batman purist, but I got a soft spot for the Harley Quinn show.
Yeah.
It's just so well written. It's just so
Mhm.
funny,
Yeah.
you know. And I like that Bane.
Yeah.
It's like that guy is like hilarious.
Mhm. Okay, so that takes us up to kind of the present day. But before we were talking, and you had mentioned something you were working on. I don't know if you want to speak about that publicly right now, or.
Well, I'm doing a 64-page graphic novel with Paul Dini.
Hmm.
I can't really announce it right now because just everyone will understand, but it's going to be a holiday special that I've
Mm,
been doing with Paul Dini, and it's kind of a sequel to Mask of the Phantasm,
okay.
believe it or not, um, starring the Joker. Beyond that, I can't really say anything yet until until I get more of it done and we can actually DC can actually do a proper announcement.
Of course. Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's a big that's already okay. I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't want to get you into any trouble.
yeah,
So
don't. Yeah, no, because I'm gonna let DC do
okay.
the big announcements.
All right. Is there anything else that you're working on that you want to mention or?
Well, I mean, it's like there's that book that I've been doing, and I've been appearing at a lot of comic book conventions with Heroic Fine Arts.
Mm-hmm.
So usually with me and Dan Reba.
Yep.
So actually, we have going to be in Kansas City. I think that's Planet Comic Con. It's like Kansas
Okay.
City's the next big one,
Yeah.
and that's at the end of March.
Okay.
So last weekend in March, if anyone wants to go and see us there, I've been doing a lot of doing commissions and selling originals and prints at the conventions, and that's actually been keeping me pretty busy too.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, it's like, and after the graphic novel with Paul, I've got another book that I've done that I've been working on, which is about my relationship with a surfing with a seal.
Oh, okay.
It's that kind of autobiographical story about me and surfing.
Sounds
And
cool.
yeah, and that's another book that I'm working on.
Yeah.
It's like so. Yeah, I've been keeping pretty busy.
Yeah. Sounds
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for coming on and thanks you for everything you've done for the industry and for Bat fans and fans of all sorts of animation everywhere. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. I love doing it.
All right, folks. Kevin Altieri, thank you very much for joining us on Bat Talk, and hopefully we'll have someone else on another time. These are pretty irregular, but thank you for joining us this time. And I don't really have an outro, but have a great day.
That's okay. You too. No, thanks, Ryan.